Hello everyone, I am Caleb James DeLisle, or DeLisle, depending on if you're American or French. I am American, but I live here. I'm the research manager at XWiki, and I work on the CryptPad project. This presentation is made with CryptPad. Before CryptPad, I worked on the CJDNS project. And I'm here today to talk to you about the cloud and about ethics. Now, to start off, I think we need to define ethics. And I'm going to upset all the ethical philosophers here because I'm going to give you a really simple definition, but for the purposes of this discussion, I think it's good enough. For me, the definition of ethics is the rules, the mental programming, the protocols that every citizen, every person needs to follow in order for society to function. And so obviously these rules are not really applicable to geopolitics, and they're not applicable to like animals in the jungle and these kinds of things. So with ethics out of the way, let's talk about the cloud and about open source. So happy birthday, OW2. It's been 10 years and things are looking good. I was born in 1987, so when I was 10 years old, I got my first Linux computer. And I grew up while open source grew up. I was at Linux World 2000 because I had a good mentor. And I was there when Red Hat went public and when Ubuntu was being a very early pitch of Ubuntu. And it's now 17 years later, and open source has won, sort of. See, in 1995, software was made by companies, and it was sold to individuals and to other companies, and the software was the property, and it was delivered on these floppies or the CD-ROMs, and you weren't supposed to copy them. And today, software is still mostly made by companies. We have some contributors, but it's mostly made by companies, and almost all the software is given away for free, and now the property du jour has become the data. And what's interesting about this is that despite the explosion of free and open source software, we have somehow become more dependent on companies like Google and Facebook than we had been before. You see, in 1995, Microsoft couldn't unilaterally shut you out of your computer. And today, companies like Facebook, Apple, and Google effectively can. Now, let's rewind a bit more. The internet, as we know it, was created in 1982 as a US military research project. And this is the internet when it was 10 years old. From there, the story we're told is that the military only cared about the internet for its own internal communications, and the technology just got out the door and it spread, and the hippies and hackers and everybody started to use it, and then tech companies sprung up all around Silicon Valley in order to make money while changing the world. And there was a loss of privacy, but it was an inevitable sacrifice for the increasingly connected world. And the fact that today, each one of us is being watched, cataloged, and recorded on servers in the USA through a network designed by the US military, well, that's just a happy accident. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about how venture capital works. You see, inside the US, and for people who are not from the US, this is something you don't know, the military intelligence industrial system is massive. If you know 10 people, then like one of them is a veteran, one of them is in active military, 2 of them are working for a defense contractor, and 3 of them are working for companies that are supporting defense contractor. Now, there's a firm called In-Q-Tel, which invests on behalf of the CIA on lots of different companies which make things that the intelligence community uses. We don't know whether elements of the US military machine are investing in big companies like Google and Facebook, but what we do know is that there are people like Peter Thiel, for instance, who serve dual roles. They provide services to the intelligence community, in his case through his company Palantir, and they also serve as, in his case, as an early angel investor to Facebook. Now, here's a graph which you won't be able to read, but This is a graph of people, institutions, and organizations and their social network links involved in Facebook. Now, Peter Thiel is the little flower at the bottom, and you can see that in this graph, and you'll have the information afterwards, you see VC, investment banks, tech companies, intelligence companies, and Ivy League universities all interconnected. So given the blurry line between the state and the investment banks and between the intelligence and the tech community, just ask yourself for a moment, do you think that we're really all using Google and Facebook just because all the smart guys live in California? Now, the internet and the cloud and Silicon Valley is not the first thing to come from California and take the world by storm. After the World Wars, Hollywood came to dominate cinema all around the world. And measures to protect domestic cinema by various different companies against the onslaught of Hollywood films coming out every month, they were treated as hostile acts by Hollywood's lobby, the MPAA. Now, the State Department saw the MPAA as an important strategic tool in promoting American values, and for them it was the survival imperative in the fight against communism. So they chose to see any limitation in the spread of American films as unfair economic protectionism. So eventually Hollywood got their way, and the impact of American culture, especially on Europe, is striking. So you all know this guy, but what you may not know is that the personification of Santa Claus as an old bearded man, an old bearded fat man, is actually a creation of the Coca-Cola Company. I need not remind you that cigarettes are all coming from the United States. But most surprisingly, Hollywood even has the power to change facts. And this one is just beautiful. In 1945, French people were surveyed as to which country they thought contributed the most to winning the World War II. And 57% said that it was the USSR, and 20% said the USA. By 2004, the numbers were reversed. 20% said it was the USSR, and 58% said the USA. And the number decreased a little bit by 2015, but if you ask me who won World War II, I'll tell you it was Hollywood. Now, some people might take an ethical position that this kind of thing is bad. We shouldn't have a machine that tells people what to think and eats their data. But as I said in the beginning, beware. Ethics and geopolitics should not mix. And if we want to be effective as European open source businesses, what we should think instead is, what is a system of ethics? What is a system of rules? What is a system of norms that we can adopt which will allow us to thrive within this system, to extend the system, and to make it more democratic? So China has made a unilateral decision to just block the American cloud. So there's the Great Firewall, and people say, well, that's a tool for repression. But if you look at it actually, what it's blocking Google, it's blocking Twitter, it's blocking Facebook. These are the big data aggregators. Europe has also passed a stringent Privacy Protection Act, which will go into effect in 2018. But I'm not sure that it will actually be enough with machine learning. And what we're headed toward is a fragmented internet. But a fragmented internet is not going to benefit anybody. So the XWiki research team and I have been working on a different kind of cloud. We're developing a zero-knowledge technology called CryptPad. So zero knowledge means that we use cryptography on the client side, in your computer, in your phone, in your browser, to make sure that we, the operator of the cloud server, cannot read the content that you're typing. Zero knowledge protects your sensitive data from hackers. It protects from cloud providers that have gone bad or pivoted, changed their business model. It protects all of us from the social fallout of single entities that simply amass too much data. Now, some politicians think that this end-to-end cryptography, that's the cryptography that allows zero knowledge to work, is a terrorism enabler. And in reality, it probably is, but that doesn't matter. We've had this debate 22 years ago. We had the debate about HTTPS, because military-grade HTTPS encryption was not allowed anywhere except inside the US until 1996, I think it was. But it's no less dangerous than it was in 1995. But it's become the foundation of e-commerce and of online banking and of pretty much everything that we do online. Even CryptPad is using good old HTTPS. And nobody in their right mind would now propose that we should go back to the old days of 40-bit SSL. And just like any other technology, if the technology is right, then banning it's not going to make it go away. It's just going to move the R&D to another jurisdiction. So it will decide that somebody else becomes the winner. But this particular technology is one of few things that can offer us a new deal for cloud, which America, Europe, and China can all actually agree on. So we stand at a fork in the road. Big data and machine learning are here. Strong AI is just around the corner, I predict. And he who controls the data will control the AI. And he who controls the AI will control just about everything. So data is power. So decentralization is democracy. So let us decentralize the data. Let us decentralize the wealth that the internet has created. Let us go dark. Thank you very much. And